Hey, kindergarten art friends, it's our second day of talking about lines. Remember, lines are pretty much every mark we put on our paper when we're making art. So it's really important to learn how to make all different styles of lines and to practice because it's going to make us a much stronger artist. We're going to do our second page of practice today for our lines, and then we're going to use our paper, this special paper that already has some lines on it, to start our artwork for this week. So we're going to decorate this side of the paper, and then we're going to do the second part tomorrow. We're going to use special colors for this too. Let's start with our line practice, and then we'll talk about the special color choices we're going to make when we decorate our paper. You want your markers or crayons, and then you need your packet, and we're going to flip to the second page of line practice. All right, so this is our second page. Yesterday we traced all of those different lines and we named those lines, right? Lines have different names that we can use for them to help describe the way that they look. And now we're going to put those together. Anytime we repeat a line or a color or a shape, we can make a pattern. A pattern is something that repeats, and we can fill a whole space with a pattern by repeating lines. And this gives us another opportunity to practice some of those lines. And then we're going to take these lines and we're going to put them into our artwork. So in each box, we're going to fill the box with lots of those styles of lines. So we'll start first with straight lines. Remember, those are the ones that just go up and they all go in the same direction, up and down or this way. They could really go any direction, but they're going to continue that same direction the whole time. So I'm going to make some up and down lines from the top to the bottom of my paper. These are called vertical. And when we repeat lots of straight lines together, it helps us make some stripes. As we're making these patterns here, you might find that you recognize these patterns. Maybe you have stripes on your clothes today, or stripes on something at your house. I bet you can picture lots of these patterns as we're putting them together. I like to switch a color each time because then my page is beautiful and colorful. So if you want to switch colors, you can do the same thing. Our next line is our wavy line. So it's like a straight line, but we're going to go up and down with it. And we're just going to curve it so it's wavy. The wavy line goes across our paper, up and down. It could also, the wavy lines could go in lots of different directions, but the line itself goes up and down with curves to it. All right, and we repeat the line over and over again, filling the box, and the line that we're making becomes a pattern. Next, we have a dotted pattern. So we'll make some polka dots. To make dots, we can just do the top of our marker point. We could also draw small circles and fill them in to make bigger polka dots. That's what I'll do. Some bigger polka dots to fill the whole box. If I'm ever moving too fast, remember you can pause the video and you can finish your space and then you can catch back up. Okay, the next one is spirals. Spirals are a great fun line to use. We can use spirals to do all types of things. Maybe we use spirals to show the wind or the clouds in the sky. Spirals are a great shape for making a snail shell. When we make a spiral, we can start in the middle and we wind outwards, around and around and around, or we can start outside and wind inwards. So you can decide which direction you make your spiral. But to make a pattern of spirals, we just keep repeating. We fill this space in with lots of spirals to make a spiral pattern. The key to making a pattern is repetition, repeating. Okay, our next one is a zigzag. Our zigzag is like our wavy line, but it's pointy. Okay, it goes up to points instead of curves. Zigzag looks like a lightning bolt. That's why I chose my yellow. I'm going to make a pattern of zigzags that look like lightning bolts on my paper. Are you seeing any patterns that you recognize? Maybe from your clothes, maybe from something in your house. Okay. Crisscross pattern. So we practiced our crisscrosses by making little T's or little X's. But a whole pattern of crisscrosses, we can make that just by repeating stripes in 2 different directions. We can make a crisscross pattern. So I'll start with my stripes that go up and down, my vertical stripes. Then I add in my stripes that go across, my horizontal stripes. Now I have a whole crisscross pattern. See all those little T's? Right, it's a repetition of those little T's, but we did it in one big long line. All right, my page is looking colorful. I'm filling it with beautiful patterns. I'm going to find lots of ways to use these patterns in my artwork. Next is the curly line. I love making curly lines, as it reminds me of roller coasters going loop-de-loop-de-loops all the way across my paper. I'm going to make lots of curly lines to make it a pattern. Loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop. Curly lines are great to use in our artwork too. Curly lines are great for curly hair. I have pretty curly hair. So a curly line would be great if I'm ever drawing a self-portrait. That's a picture of myself. Okay, 2 more to go. And the last 2 are very similar. I'm going to do them with the same color to really show the difference. Remember, a thick line or a thin line, we can make thick lines and thin lines depending on what part of our marker we use. So if I use the side of the tip, that's a bigger surface. It can make a thick line. If I use the very tippy top part, that's much smaller surface. So it gives a thin line. So I'm going to start with my thick line. So remember, I'm going to turn my marker a little on this side and press the whole side part down of my tip. And it makes big, thick lines. Those are some big, thick stripes. Now, for my thin line, I'm just going to use the very tip top. I'm going to stand my marker up super tall and just use the tip top of the marker tip. And now I have thin lines. Thin lines across my paper. So thick and thin. That's our last page of practice for making some lines. We practiced and named a bunch of different lines. Now we practice putting them together to turn them into some patterns of lines. We'll make patterns of all different types of things, of textures and shapes and colors, but lines are a great place to start with our pattern making in art class. I want you to get this paper out and get your markers and your crayons, and I'm going to get out my colors again, and we're going to talk a little bit about color families one more time. All right, we talked about our basic colors. We talked about the 3 primary colors and then the 3 secondary colors that we mix when we mix 1 primary plus 1 primary. So when we put all those together, we get our 6 basic colors. Our 3 primaries, yellow, red, and blue. Our 3 secondaries, orange, green, and purple. Now, when we make a color wheel, remember we talked about how we put them in a certain order, that rainbow, that Roy G. Biv order we talked about. Well, if we draw a line through the middle of our Roy G. Biv order, we're going to split those into 2 new groups. Did you know that colors have a temperature? Yeah, even though they don't feel hot, right? If I pick up a color, it's not going to feel hot, or it's not going to feel cold, but it gives us a feeling of that. So I want you to imagine that I asked you to draw a fire, or I asked you to draw a sun, a bright shining sun in the sky. Which colors would you use? You probably wouldn't use blue to draw a sun, right? What colors do we use for our sun? Maybe yellow, orange, right? If we're doing fire, yellow, orange, red. Yellow, orange, and red are colors that we call warm colors. So you think about all the things that you might draw that would feel warm, and that's a good way to remember the warm colors, right? So even though these don't feel warm, they are warm colors, and that the things we draw with them do feel warm in real life, even though the markers themselves don't feel warm. So these are our warm colors. On the other side, we have the cool colors. These are the colors we would use to make more cool colors, our green, blue, and purple, right? Blue is one of the coolest colors that there is, right? So if we're looking to draw something that isn't warm, we use cool. So we have a new color family by drawing our line down the middle of our Roy G. Biv order. Warm colors and cool colors. Now, when we're going to do this piece of artwork, we're going to do one part in warm colors, and we're going to do one part in just cool colors. I sent home with you some long strips of paper. Are these in warm colors or are these cool colors? You're right, these are our warm colors. So we're going to decorate these tomorrow. You'll need to bring these to class. Today, we're going to focus on our cool colors. Because we have warm color strips, we're going to do the opposite today, our cool colors. So we can get out all of the greens and blues and purples out of our crayon box and out of our marker box. And we're going to use those to create a line design on our paper. Okay, so start getting those out. I'm going to get mine ready, and then we'll start our line design. Okay, I've got my special paper with the lines on it, and I got out my cool colors, my blues and greens and purples out of my crayon box and out of my marker box. Now, for this, we're going to decorate this side of the paper. These lines are going to be important tomorrow. We don't want to cover them up. We're going to make our design here. And I want you to set your paper long ways. We're going to make a design that goes across our paper like this. And you'll see why tomorrow. So all I want you to do is I want you to work to try to fill in your paper as best you can, doing lots of different types of lines, and then adding other cool colors to help fill in the space. All right, the more color that we add in here, I think the nicer that our paper is going to look. And I'm going to use both crayons and markers so that some of my lines will really stand out. So I'm going to do most of my lines in my markers, and I'm going to use my crayons to help shade in and color in the backgrounds. So if you have your line papers nearby, you can look at these to give you some ideas for some of the lines that you might create on your space. So I'm going to start with just picking up any one of my cool colors that I want to use. And remember, we're going to try to use just cool colors. And then let's make some lines that go across, some different rows with some different lines to fill in this space. So I started with a spiral. I'm going to make a spiral that goes off my paper a little bit. Okay, I've got a whole row of spirals. And maybe next I'll make some wavy lines to go next to my spirals. And I don't have to make just one, I can make a bunch. I want to try to do lots of the different lines that I practiced. I want a lot of variety in my artwork. I think this is going to look really fun and cool when we finish it. And I think it'll look really fun if I use lots of different designs in my art. Maybe some thick lines and then thin lines. Maybe I can alternate. So I do one thick line, maybe two thin lines. And if I repeat that, it becomes a pattern. Thick line, thin line. Remember, you can do these right with me. You can be making up your own patterns right now. If I'm moving too fast, you can pause it and catch up. All right, my favorite are the curly cues. Let's do some curly cue lines. See how I am repeating, so I am making these into some patterns. So I'm going to do another one, and then I'll probably have room for one more line style. And I think I know just the one I want to use. I think I want some zigzags. So I did spirals, wavy lines, thin and thick stripe lines, curly lines, and now some big zigzag lines. Okay, so now that I've filled my paper with all my different lines that I wanted to use, I'm going to take my crayons and now I'm going to add some other colors to them. So I'm going to use my crayon to shade in each different section to add another cool color to my artwork. So I'm starting with some green to add into my light blue spirals. And I know that I'm working a little bit fast, so remember to pause if you need to. I work a little fast on these sometimes just because you don't have to do just what I'm doing. So I want to show you an idea or an example. That way, if you want to do something different, you're not sitting here watching me do something that isn't going to be what you want to do. I think for my waves, I'm going to do one part in this color and one in another. So you can see I'm trying to shade it in. I'm coloring a little lightly, but I'm not trying to skip any spots. I am trying to cover in all the white space, but just lightly shaded with my crayon. Because I'm pressing lightly because I still want to make sure I see all my cool marker line patterns that I did. Make these ones a purple. I think this is my blue purple, my blue violet. So our cool colors are the green, blues, and purples. And they're different from the warm colors that we're going to use tomorrow. Those are our reds, our oranges, and our yellows. Okay, moving along here. So remember, you're just coloring in with your cool colors. You make some line patterns, and then we're filling in the background with more cool colors. We want to have a page just full of so many different cool colors. This is reminding me a little of Sonia Delaunay art, except instead of with circles and shapes, like we did with all of our circle art in class last week when we were playing with our colors. Instead, we're kind of making Sonia Delaunay art with lines. This is what we call our abstract art. Abstract art, I'm trying to decide what's the right color to use. Abstract art is the art that we make when maybe we're not drawing an actual thing, maybe we're just making art out of our elements of art, like lines and colors and shapes. Abstract art doesn't have to look like a tree or a person. It can just be art for the sake of art. It can just be lines and colors and shapes. That's art too, even if it doesn't look like something in particular. Okay, one last section to color in. I did my marker lines, and now I'm shading with my cool color crayons over top, and I'm going to have a full paper ready to go for tomorrow. So tomorrow, when you come back to class, we're going to need this paper again. This paper is going to turn into our loom. We're going to do some weaving with this paper. So you got to bring your long, warm color paper strips. Do you remember the warm colors? That's our red, yellow, and orange colors. You'll need your cool color paper we just decorated. You'll need your warm color strips. And you should bring your markers and crayons back too. Tomorrow we might use some warm colors. We can decorate our paper strips. You're also going to need your glue stick and your scissors so we can turn this into a weaving. All right, that's our plan for tomorrow. So bring your supplies and meet me back here. Let's put this together into an amazing piece of artwork. See you then.